Welcome. My name is Lorna, and this is Ananda, Portland. This is our first Advent Sunday. I wasn't able to get it done on Sunday, so we're actually a little late, but this is our first Advent week. And the topic today are the three wise men, and the theme is hope. Let's begin with a prayer together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters of self-realization, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we bow at thy feet. Opportunity. Help us to open our hearts during this Advent season to receive the blessings of the Christ consciousness, to explore the story of the coming of the Christ, being born here on earth to us as a great avatar. Help us to receive all that he would give. Help us to be channels for the light of that Christ consciousness to all, to grow in our understanding, in our spiritual life, that we might get ever closer to that awakening and that awareness of the Christ within. Om peace. Amen. Well, it's good to be here. I love Advent season. It's an opportunity to really draw into the spirit of the Christmas season. Advent means coming, something arriving, something is coming. And traditionally in the Christian church, it means the coming of the Christ, of baby Jesus being born at Christmas. It can also refer to the second coming of Christ at some future date. But it really, for anybody, it's just an opportunity to build the inspiration and open the heart ever more as we draw closer to Christmas Day. There are 4 Advent Sundays, usually starting the end of November, leading up to Christmas Day. So each one has a theme in various traditions all over the world. There's a lot of different ways to celebrate Advent, often with a wreath and 4 candles, so you light one each Sunday, and then there's a 5th candle in the middle that is done on Christmas Day representing the Christ. We're not going to do a wreath here today, but our first Advent has the theme of hope, and the characters are those that represent that are the 3 wise men. Now, in some traditions, they're called 3 kings. The figures in the nativity story are dressed as kings. They have crowns and they bring, camels laden with all these gifts. And let's read the actual gospel account of the 3 wise men and get to where we know what is said there. So this is from the Gospel of Matthew, and it's the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 12. This is the only place where the wise men are talked about. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, Bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also." When they heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. That's what we know of the three wise men. Now, there's a lot there, and yet there isn't. There's the star that they saw in the east, and we'll talk more about the star. So it says they came from the east to Jerusalem. Then it says they saw the star in the east. So does that refer to seeing the star when they were in the east? They saw the star, or they saw the star in the east and they followed it, which would be a little strange because they were going west if they came from the east. So then there's also the fact that it came over the place where the baby was born. That's an interesting idea as well. Now, it doesn't say there are three wise men. It just says wise men came. And the assumption has been by most people that there were three because there are three gifts: gold, frankincense, myrrh. Although there are a lot of traditions that say there were more than three wise men. And the other thing is they don't refer to them as kings. We often, talk about kings. Now, there are prophecy, though, in the Old Testament. There's one in Isaiah chapter 60, where he talks about Gentiles and kings coming to see and worship the light that is born, and mentions also dromedaries and camels, and bringing gold and incense again. So that's where the camel idea came in. And of course, camels were used as transportation then, so it's not weird to think that they might have come on camels. And again, but he doesn't say numbers or specifically, just refers to kings. Psalm 72 also refers to kings. All kings shall bow down to him. So there's this idea of kings coming and worshiping. But, there's also a sort of drama, a romantic idea of that, of kings who are rich in worldly wealth and power and grandeur, and they come traveling a long way to see a young, poor child who was born in a stable to humble parents, and they bow at his feet. It's a beautiful and dramatic image that we have that is played out, on all the Christmas cards and everywhere, and it's wonderful. But they're called wise men, and the idea of the wise men at that time were that they were people who knew the stars, they were learned, they followed and studied astronomy, the movement of the planets, as well as astrology, or what the meaning of the movement of the planets was. So they came as men who knew that the baby, the avatar, a incarnation of God, was going to come to earth. And they set out on a journey to come a long way without any modern transportation, and to be there at the right time. Now, there's no mention here that they came they were there when the child was born. That's also something that's talked about a lot. There's the idea or the tradition of Epiphany, that they showed up later when the child was a little bit older, after the scene in the stable. But, we like seeing them there in the stable with the cows and the sheep and the shepherds and everything. So we have this image of these wise men coming and bowing down at the birth of this baby Jesus. And there's the star. So the star in the yogic teachings, the way Yogananda tells it, and other wise teachers, spiritual teachers, The star is the spiritual eye. Here in the forehead, we can see a little tiny white star on a blue field with a gold ring around it. When you go deep into meditation, deep in stillness and calmness and focused concentration, you can have that experience of seeing that star. It's not a physical phenomenon. It's in our astral body, in our spiritual body, in the reality beyond the material. And you don't even have to have physical vision in order to have that experience of seeing the spiritual line, the point between the eyebrows. And in the yogic teachings, that's the star of intuition. That's the star of knowledge, the seat of that divine super consciousness, where you, if you go that deep into stillness and you observe that and you are open to that, then you receive solutions, you receive clarity of understanding, you have a much broader awareness and understanding. And that they saw the star, they saw and became aware of what was happening intuitively within. And so they followed that star. Now they saw the star in the east, because this front of the body is considered the eastern part of the body, again, in yogic teachings. So the eastern part of the body is here in the front, in the forehead. And that's where they saw the star. Now, I find it interesting, the idea of the star coming and being over where the baby was born, and that it showed them where the child was, is an interesting idea. Where is the Christ consciousness born within us? Where does that start? It begins in the heart, when we open our heart, when we have enough devotion, enough longing and yearning for God's presence, we have enough of that deep prayer, deep contemplation, deep yearning, as I said, for that divine presence. It's born within us as a little baby, a little child, a little presence that is there, that needs to grow and needs to become fully into itself, into us. So it's born in the heart, that awareness in the heart. And where is the star? The star is over where the Christ child is born and is always there, showing us the way there above the cradle of our hearts. Now, the journey that the wise men took is also an interesting idea, that they traveled across a long way. There's a lot of ideas about this. If one of the kings or one of the wise men came all the way from India, came from a long way, it was quite a long journey. And they were doing that for quite a while before they got all the way to Bethlehem, or to the place where Christ was. So they set out on this long journey that had its dangers, it had its challenges, and it took a lot of perseverance and persistence to go all that way. And then they went back. So the idea of this journey is also another thing to think about in this story. The journey that we take when that Christ consciousness starts to awaken in us, and the awareness of that presence within us. What starts happening? We start making a journey. We start on the spiritual path. We start awakening to that, and things start to happen. And the energy starts moving in our lives. It moves again, in the yogic traditions, the energy needs to move up the spine, all the way up here to the star, to the spiritual eye. And so the journey, some people say, is only about 3 feet, because it's the length of our spine, from the base of the spine, the lower chakras, the Kundalini energy that is stored there, and rising up the spine through all the chakras, awakening the heart center, moving all the way up to the medulla, which is the seat of our ego and our confinement, our energy and our attachment and identity to this body. And then the energy has to move here all the way to the star, to to the spiritual eye, to where we're fully awake and that light is fully within us, and we're aware of God's presence within all the time. And so the journey is up the spine. Now, the theme, the idea of hope is what accompanies the three wise men. Hope for that awakening, hope for that Christ consciousness coming into our lives and filling us with the love and the joy of that divine presence. They had, of course, they had the hope because they were looking for the birth of that avatar, the birth of that consciousness, and they didn't give up on it, and they looked for it and studied and looked for when it was supposed to come and how it was going to arrive and how to travel, wanted to travel and be there to welcome and honor him. Swami Kriyananda wrote a song called Three Wise Men, and the line in that is the three wise men came to honor and welcome the Christ child. So that's the attitude that we can have, is honoring, recognizing what that is, and welcoming, which means opening the heart. That's what has to happen in order for that Christ consciousness to really be alive, as we have to open our hearts to it. And that's what we do when we welcome. So there's also the hope that comes with what Yogananda told us about the three wise men, which is these three wise men were actually part of our lineage of gurus. One was Babaji, one was Yogananda, and one was Babaji, one was Lahiri Mahashaya, and one was Sri Yukteswar. It was Yogananda who told that to Swami Kriyananda, his direct disciple. So the three wise men, according to him, were other avatars that came in a different incarnation. They didn't go by those names. And they came to honor and welcome him, which is a fascinating idea to me and full of hope. Because what that implies is that this lineage of gurus has been taking care of this planet, guiding us, giving us the wisdom of eternity through all the ages, always helping, always bringing the light, always helping to uplift and guide the planet, training disciples, taking care of us, helping us to see that light, never giving up on us, never leaving us alone, never letting us be lost in the darkness, always bringing that light and giving us these teachings over and over and over again, as long as it takes for all souls to return to God, to return to that awareness. That just fills me with great hope and gratitude for that. It's an idea, the gurus of this lineage being the wise men. It's a little out there for people. It's okay if that's a little too much to swallow, but it's an interesting idea and something that is fun to meditate on and think about. Now, the other thing about the wise men, as we know, they brought gifts. So they always have with them these gifts that they carry. Every image is holding something: the gold, the frankincense, the myrrh. And you can read a lot about what these are meant symbolically, what they possibly meant. The gold, of course, is easy to see if you're king and you're offering the riches that you have, offering the gold to another king, to this child that they recognize it has a potential of growing into a kingdom of his own. And so the gold represents that, the worldly riches, and the recognition of Jesus, or the Christ child, being a fellow king. Then there's the frankincense. Frankincense was used for a lot of different things, but it was used a lot in offering at the temple. It was an incense. It was burned had a very distinct smell to it, and and it was expensive. It was not something everybody had around, laying around the house, and but it was used as offering, as at the temple, offering to God in recognition of the power of God, the power of the divine, and the source of, of all that is, the source of everything is that divine presence, and offering that. Then the myrrh was used again in different ways, but one of the main ways is an ointment form to use on the body after death, and in sort of the embalming process, the preservation and the cleaning and the ritual care of the physical body after somebody dies. Again, not something that everybody did. It was an ointment or a substance that was cost money and was not for the common people, but it was used in that way and is usually seen as the for Christ's sacrifice on the cross, for the pain and suffering that he went through for us, for his disciples, and the, the overcoming of the physical into the resurrection, of course. So those three. Now we give gifts now to each other. It's a common practice at Christmas time, and it largely stems from this idea of the three wise men bringing the gifts to the baby Jesus. Now, giving gifts, of course, is also something we don't need much excuse to do. We do that for loved ones, all kinds of occasions, and on other celebrations and holidays. But it's very much an integral part of the Christmas celebrations all over the world, and is very much a part of the idea of the wise men bringing gifts to the infant. Now, giving and offering is also a big part of Christmas and of the spiritual path. And so we can think about these things much more personally from this story, the idea of the three wise men and the gifts that they brought. So there's a way that we can take this into our own personal practice and deepen our awareness and our preparation for the coming of Christ into our lives more deeply. Every year, of course, we can do it more and more deeply and try to take it inward. The three gifts can be, for us, think about the number three. It's a very spiritual number. It can be symbolic of a lot of different things. The idea of the gold, frankincense, and myrrh you can translate to your own personal life and offering. The idea of giving gold can be a very sort of practical, on a very practical level, of giving money or giving tithing to the source of inspiration, tithing to your church, to your spiritual group, giving money to support the coming of the light, to support good works, to support spreading the news of the spiritual teachings, of helping others, however you want to do it. It can be giving. The gift of gold can be giving you part of your earnings and your material wealth or riches or earnings in some small amount or a large amount, as a symbol of that, just like one of the three wise men. It can also be an idea of just offering any of your worldly desires, your desires for riches, your desires for gold, your desires for worldly success and stature, offering that to God and saying, everything comes from thee. Everything is going to come to me that I need, as long as I put my trust and my heart and my life at your feet and recognize that that's where it's going to come from. You will give me everything I need. And trying to offer our desires, which is what closes down our heart. When we have desires, when we have yearnings and wantings of other things other than God, it just gets in the way, and we're not able to receive. If we open our hearts more, then God can come in more. The frankincense can be an idea of recognizing the source of all that is, recognizing God rather than sacrificing as they did in the temples back then. But the recognition is God is the power. God is the source of all. I'm a part of all that is. But I offer that in recognition to God. And then the myrrh, which for a lot of people, they say it represents Jesus, the death on the cross. It represents pain and suffering. Well, what about just our fear of pain and suffering? What about the idea of being mortal and being afraid for our body, afraid for our loved ones? What about the recognition that we are mortal, that we are not in this lifetime, this body is going to go away, everything fades away, everything dies. But within our real identity, within who we really are as children of God, we're immortal, we're changeless, we're deathless. We are a part of that divine light. We came from that star. That's who we really are. And so offering the myrrh it can be a way of offering up that limitation of the physical into the limitless idea of who and what we really are. But that may be all, a little too esoteric for some people. Think about 3 gifts that you can offer. Think about it can be the idea of three of anything. A lot of times you read about the kings, the wise men, and they represent old age. There's often one with a white beard, and one who's an adult that has the brown beard, and then one that's very youthful. And so they represent, for a lot of people, old age, adulthood, and youth, and the 3 ages of man, coming and bowing before the King, before the Christ, and offering your whole life, offering your past, your present, your future. You can also think about it as morning, noon, and night. All day, 24 hours a day, we offer ourselves. Whenever we think about it, we offer ourselves into that Christ consciousness, into that presence of God. So it can be a meditation in our tradition, in the yogic tradition. We meditate, so we might meditate morning, noon, and night as a way of offering to the Christ consciousness. It may be some other ritual or affirmation or prayer that you do morning, noon, and night as your 3 gifts, like the wise men. It could be the idea that came to me also was the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious mind. All in order to get to that star, to really be fully self-realized, to be fully awake in God, all of us, every part of us, our consciousness, has to come into that awareness, the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious parts of ourselves. You can also make it more fun by saying, there will be 3 things that I give to someone else as an offering of my energy and of my devotion and my service to my fellow man. So 3 gifts. Oftentimes people will, choose a charity, pick a thing off of a tree and give a gift to a child who doesn't have a Christmas present. Giving in some way during the holidays is deeply symbolic and something that a lot of people greatly enjoy and really is a part of their holiday. So do it as the wise men did. Do it 3 times. Find 3 ways to serve, 3 different people to uplift or to share something with, 3 different ways to give that energy to God through your fellow man, through other people in some fashion. And it's with joy. We have this hope that is part of the theme here, but what we want to do is awaken that joy. They came and worshipped him when they saw the star. The Bible passage says they had exceedingly great able to. Now, how can we be more like the wise men? Be more like them in our quest for that awareness, that journey to the star. In whatever way that inspires you, if you see that, try to be more like them, drawing closer to the star, closer to Bethlehem throughout the holiday season. When I was a young child, when my mom put out the nativity set, what I would often do is take the 3 kings and put them across the room somewhere. And as we got closer to Christmas, I would move them gradually to another spot so that by Christmas Day, they were there where baby Jesus was in the stable. I had fun doing that. And we can do that also with our consciousness, trying to draw closer and closer every day to that awareness of Christ's presence. Read a Christmas story every day. Read some of the scripture describing the coming of the wise men and the birth of Christ. It's wonderful, beautiful, children's books out there of the Christmas story. Lots and lots of carols and sacred music that you could enjoy. Enjoy one song, not just playing on the radio while you're bopping along. But sit down a little bit closer. You awaken a little bit more. You could also, as I said, serve somebody else every day. Try to forget yourself, any of your worries, your concerns, your challenges, your heartaches, your grief, your anger, whatever it might be that is keeping you from that presence in your life. And try to give a little bit of that up every day. And the way we do that is by forgetting about ourselves and serving and doing something for someone else. That's the only way we can forget about ourselves. And as we do that, again, we open our heart even more. And then meditation. Of course, on our path, meditation is a big way. We understand that meditation is an inward journey. That's the journey that the wise men took inwardly. They meditated in some fashion. They grew in awareness within. They had to, because that's the way it works. And so we can do that as well. And maybe make your meditations more special. Some way for this season. Dress up your altar. Have a little Christmas tree there. Put up ornaments and lights. Put a picture of Jesus right there in the middle so that you really focus on him. Or the others, think of them as the 3 wise men going to Bethlehem. In some way, make it even more of an offering during this time, because it's a time of great energy, spiritual energy in the ether, in everything that we do. There's just more of it that's kind of tingling and awakening. And as we tune into that, we can take advantage of the fact that it's Christmas time. And yes, there are a lot of other things, materialism and everything that we could also tune into. But there's this deep understanding that is there that we can also take. And even with COVID and being apart, we can take part in that. At Ananda Portland, we'll be doing it at the temple. We'll be watching on a screen the live stream from the Ananda Village 8-hour meditation. And it's very daunting to think about doing that if you've never done anything like that before, but it can be a wonderful adventure. And it's not 8 hours of just quiet meditation. In fact, they have little chunks of meditation throughout the day with chanting, music, recorded music, possibly live music, readings, breaks for getting up and stretching and moving. But it's deeply inward. It's a little retreat where that's what you focus on for the day. And if you can't do it for the whole time, go for just a little bit of the time. It's very, very sacred, and it's wonderful to share that and to feel that. And people all over the world that are part of Ananda will be doing that in various places, and you can just feel their devotion and that shared aspiration as you close your eyes and you meditate on that day. I would really encourage you to take that. And if you can't do it that day, maybe try to do it some other time during the holiday where you just go longer than you normally go and try to take that journey a little deeper and a little longer than you usually have time for. And what the idea of the baby as a newborn, of the Christ being born within as a small baby in the cradle of our heart, try to remember that we have to nurture that. The symbol of the baby is one, of course, that everybody responds to, needing to take care of that infant because it's totally incapable of taking care of itself. And so we have to take care of it and nurture it and protect it. And even the story of Herod, King Herod, asking to know where that child was so he could come and worship him, it is with, had evil intentions. In fact, when he discovered that the kings left and didn't tell him, and he couldn't find the child, he had, it was a very bad thing. He had all the young children killed that had been born within that time period that he thought that Christ had been born. And so there's this allegory of, of that being, that awareness that is waking up in us needs to be protected and nurtured from the world so that it doesn't get destroyed, it doesn't get silenced. And so particularly if you're newer on the path, be sure to hold that with reverence and with protection, keeping it sacred, keeping it alive and safe within you, and knowing that the influences of the world are going to try to creep in, and you need to protect that and hold that in a way that it will help it to grow and get stronger within you so that it comes more and more alive every Christmas, every year, every day. Get stronger and stronger within you. Now, again, the theme with the three wise men is hope. Hope for the future, hope for each and every soul on the planet, hope for all of us, every soul, that we will awaken, that Christ consciousness within us will come alive, is only asleep, it's only buried under the delusions of the world. It's very real, and it's a part of everything. And everybody has to come to the point where that awakens within us. It grows, it gets stronger. We recognize it for what it is, and we take that as the understanding of why we were born and why we're here, is to help that Christ consciousness get stronger and stronger within until we make that journey all the way to the star, to the spiritual eye, and we are fully in that presence and in that awareness. Self-realization, it's what it is. It's becoming aware of the come from the time of Christ's birth 2,000 years ago. We keep celebrating that. We keep coming back to it over and over again. Every year in the darkness of winter, we remember and we honor and welcome the Christ child. And it's not just because of that little form being born 2,000 years ago. It's because the awareness of that's who we are. That's what we are. That's our destiny as children of light. That is the meaning of why we're here and what everything revolves around. It's the center of all that is. that star, that awakening, that Christ child. It's within us. It's wonderful. I'm going to take just a couple moments here before we close. Let's really meditate on the idea of that Christ consciousness being born within. Try to visualize that within your heart, whether it's symbolic or you can see this small baby in this manger with the animals, with Mary and Joseph there, and these three wise men coming on their journey, traveling far, feeling that great joy within as they approach their destination. And they bow down with humility, with self-offering, and with great love. Try to feel that within your heart. Lift your eyes, keeping your eyes closed, lift your eyes to that star, looking a little bit upward as if you're looking at that star off on the horizon. Keeping your eyes uplifted, and visualize that star on a blue field with a gold ring, shining brightly over the cradle of your heart. Let's end with 3 Oms. One for each of the wise men, offering that light to the world, trying to act as an open channel for that divine light of Christ to flow through us out into the world, to magnify, to bless, and to grow ever brighter. We rub our hands together. Peace. Amen. Thank you for joining me. I hope to be able to do this again on Sunday at 4 o'clock live here on YouTube. If there's any problems technically that Arise, I will still do it and post it afterwards. I have today. The next week is about Mary and Joseph, and the theme is love. Then the next one is the shepherds, and the theme is joy. And the final one are the angels, and the theme is light. Have a blessed Christmas. Enjoy Advent, and I'll see you next time.